Greetings and welcome to LGR Oddware, where we're taking a look at hardware and software that is odd, forgotten, and obsolete. And this is an MP3 player shaped like a cassette tape. Yes, the Digisette Duo MP3 from the year 2000, and it's shaped like this because it's awesome, and also because you can just insert it into any cassette player, and then it's going to, allow you to play your files through a tape player without any other kind of converter.
É um negócio que você bota, mas é uma fita cassete de MP3 que você bota em qualquer, você bota em qualquer cassete player, cara.
You can just insert it into any cassette player, and then it's going to, allow you to play your files through a tape player without any other kind of converters or adapters or 3.5mm aux cable kind of solutions or anything like that. It uses the parallel port for transfers, amongst some fascinating things that I discovered along the way. Let's just get into it. Oh yeah, time to piss off Lars Ulrich and download some MP3s with this right here from the year 2000, the Digisette Duo MP3 portable digital player. A full self-contained battery-powered MP3 player built into a compact cassette tape shell in order to interface with any audio cassette player, in theory. New technology, superior digital sound, includes real jukebox. Ah man, they went too far. And it cost $250 US to acquire such advanced future tech back in 2000. Not at all cheap, particularly accounting for inflation and what else you could buy for that back then. It was around $100 to $160 for other 32 megabyte MP3 players, which typically had LCD screens and USB connectivity, of which the Digisette Duo has neither. So grabbing a competitor and a cheap 3.5mm cassette adapter made a lot of sense. But how boring. The Duo MP3 was just neat, combining two devices into one like no one had done before, according to the marketing anyway, which was down to Digisette LLC.
Cada coisa que inventava, né, cara? Coisas que inventaram que não durou nada, não serviu pra nada, cara. Como é que o mundo é, né? O mundo da tecnologia. A pessoa gastou tempo e dinheiro com coisas que não deram retorno nenhum. Depois que ficou tudo digital, inventou o celular. Aí ninguém inventa mais nada agora. Tudo digital, né? Mas é assim o mundo.
Based out of New Vernon, New Jersey, an unincorporated community of less than 1,000 people in southeast Morris County. Of course, that was only the stateside brand. The actual device was made in South Korea by Hyunwon Incorporated, an electronics firm that made their own ultra-slim line of MP3 players, among lots of other things, many related to optics and lighting. And they also did business under the name MobiBlue, who for a brief moment in time caused waves with the B153 audio player, boasting a massive 150-plus hour battery life. And the quote-unquote world's smallest full-featured MP3 player, the DAH-1500, and its successor, the Minicube 2. Nifty little things. But yeah, here in the US, it was Digisette, letting you know precisely what they were about, turning analog cassette players digital. And the way they did it was by packing a full flash-based MP3 player inside, complete with its own 32 megabytes of internal storage, plus an expansion slot for doubling that to 64. And for transfers, it connects to a PC via parallel port, which you'd typically use for connecting a printer. A little odd, but not unheard of for early MP3 players, but...
E você transfere só as músicas naquela fita cassete, e vai tocar cassete player, no Walkman, né?
Remember, this was 2000. USB had been around for a couple years and most of its competitors were using it and cost a lot less. Digisette's Jeff DeGracia, however, said they wanted the company's first product to be compatible with older PCs that lack USB. It's still an odd choice if you ask me, but I'm all for it now. It just makes it even more worthy of oddware. It's also just odd to see all these headlines and articles stating things like digital audio player goes retro and the cassette has been reborn in the year 2000. Cassettes hadn't even been dead that long at that point. Heck, I was still using them. Plenty to record on because they were way cheaper than buying a CD burner. But if I knew something like that to record on, because they...
It was still using them plenty to record pra gravar.
Were way cheaper than buying a CD.
Porque eles eram mais baratos de comprar um CD. Na época era caro você comprar um gravador de CD, então as pessoas gravavam ainda na fita cassete. But se você tinha algo como o Duo MP3,
burner. But if I knew something like the Duo MP3 existed, I definitely would have wanted it. I was upset.
Você provavelmente ia querer isto. Eu era obcecado com MP3. Primeiramente, eu ouvi isso em 1998.
Obsessed with MP3s from the first moment I heard about them in 1998 and found out there were websites to download them, and then eventually discovered Napster. Which, by the way, Digisette themselves were like, hey, you need free MP3s? Just use Napster. It's great.
Usar o Napster, que era a plataforma lá de baixar música pirata na MP3 na época, pra quem não conhece. Foi a primeira, aí depois apareceram outras, que não foi derrubado legalmente, mas apareceu várias outras e não deu pra segurar o download de MP3.
Oh, the turn of the millennium. What a wild time in high. It's great.
Hey, you need free MP3? Just use Napster. It's great.
Oh, the turn of the millennium. What a wild time in hindsight.
What a wild time inside. Anyway, the parallel port.
Anyway, the parallel port duo the millennium. What a wild time in hindsight. Anyway, the parallel port Duo MP3 didn't last long, it seems. Anyway, the parallel port Duo MP3 didn't last long, it seems, being quickly followed up by a USB version, as well as the Duo Aria in 2001, which changed cases and button layouts and added additional audio format support, including audible audiobooks. And then came the Duo 64, aka Duo DX, with double the internal memory and the ability to do voice recording. Digisette had all kinds of lofty product ambitions, it seems, like how they planned to partner with Data Play and create their own players for the format sometime in 2002. The company patented a design to create their own players for the format.
Seria o mini... Ah, eu tinha esses mini disc, cara. Não sei onde foi parar aqui em casa. Eu tinha um tio que trouxe do Japão. Era muito foda, cara, na época. Você escutar os mini disc pequenininho. Ele era bem menor que o CD e você botava ali. E era um som muito bom também. Não sei onde foi parar, cara. Onde eu achar eu apareço, como eu faço um vídeo.
Format sometime in 2002, the company patented a design, placed a multi-million-dollar order for parts, and the data play format failed by October 2002. Tough break to say the least. Unfortunately, they didn't do so hot beyond that point. Digisette only sold cassette MP3 players for a handful of years and had basically left the market by 2004. The last audio devices they made were FM radios that hung on a lanyard with a 3.5mm pass-through to connect your MP3 players or other devices to the radio, not to transmit over the radio, just to listen through the lanyard radio. Sure, why not? Then, in a bizarre twist, they started doing business as Digilight around 2005, leaving behind audio gear and focusing on selling tactical flashlights for firearms.
Que porra é essa, mano? Uma arminha. Tactical flashlights for firearms. Ô louco, uma lanterna pra arma de fogo?
Arms. Yes, really. It is the same company without question, using the exact same New Jersey address, which I confirmed by their advertising in issues of Concealed Carry magazine. Though it was seemingly unsuccessful, seeing as they declared Chapter 7 bankruptcy in 2006, losing
A empresa faliu em 2006, perdendo 7 milhões entre 2004.
$27 million between 2004 and 2005, while also facing an unnamed patent lawsuit leading to them liquidating the business rather than go to court.
Aqui off-way da Industore. Vamos voltar para essa do cassete.
A heck of a way to end a story about cassette-shaped MP3 players. At least for the Americans. Other international companies carried on the Digisette legacy, so to speak. The Moby Blue DAH220, for instance. Yeah, does that look familiar? It seems Digisette's Korean manufacturer continued on with the idea for a little while longer, releasing new models in 2005 and beyond. Then there was the Unitech Roam, which has very similar specs to the original Duo MP3, but with its own unique button layout. There are also those covered by Matt of Tecmone fame, like that weird unbranded one with an infrared remote control. He
coloca no negócio e toca, mano. Um tocador de fita cassete. Que loucura, né, mano? Isso aqui não chegou nunca a ser usado. No Brasil, então, menos ainda.
Covered almost a decade ago, along with the Paul Things mixtape more recently, featuring USB-C, Bluetooth, and its own little color LCD touchscreen. Of course, we also have Bluetooth cassette adapters nowadays, skipping the need for an internal MP3 player entirely, and they're affordable, so I'd really recommend that if you're looking for a digital cassette solution nowadays. As for this one though, and there's something so cool to me about having an entire audio player built into a tape, and I had this Duo MP3 sealed in box and unused, and eventually going through storage one day I decided I really should take a look inside and make sure there's not a battery leaking or something, and nope, the battery was in there, but it was not leaking or even...
Olha lá a bateria. Não tá instalado.
Installed in the device, which was a good sign. A sign of the less good variety, though,
Olha lá, a bateria tem que...
was upon testing it, the battery was completely unable to hold a charge. That didn't surprise me, so I'd already ordered brand new 1.2 volt F6s in preparation, and welp, those didn't work either.
Nossa, tem que botar a bateria dentro da fita lá, cara.
The positive end looks different, but the dimensions are still the same overall, and the new one's charged up nicely using the included wall charger. But the actual MP3 player never powered on. No LEDs, no sound, no response from a PC over parallel, nothing. So I took it apart to make sure there weren't any cap leaks
Aí ele vai abrir o bagulho agora.
or obvious signs of damage, and I mean, everything looked great to me. And it provided a nice excuse to look at the insides and how it works, like the large gear in the center connecting the tape reels, ensuring they'll both move when inside a cassette deck, with an unexpected belt connecting the right-hand reel to what appears to be the pinch roller opening. That's interesting, and we'll come back to this because it's kind of awesome. And of course, there's the expected tape head you'd find in a 3.5mm cassette adapter, plus audio player components for
Se o negócio tá rodando analógico e pega o que digital, aí ele tem um conversor.
handling files and some extra sensors, again we'll come back to, and 2 Samsung NAND flash memory chips, 16 megs each. Also, the battery compartment, which, yeah, everything was connecting just fine, visually speaking. After some more testing, I put it aside while I moved on to other projects until a year later, where another brand new one showed up on eBay. So through the until a year later, where another brand new one showed up on eBay.
Aí esperou, comprou outro no eBay, $75. Só outro...
So through the magic of reluctantly buying 2 of them, I could hopefully finish this dang video. Wrong. The second unit was non-functional in exactly the same way, and that seemed unlikely.
O segundo também não funcionou. Que droga.
This led me to take a second closer look at the battery cover and fiddle around a while with headphones plugged in, and check this out. Well, dang, the darn thing's working. Barely. And it came with 3 demo songs in memory, so that's neat. But yeah, it turns out the issue was related to the battery cover, but it's so stupid. You see this tiny little sliver of plastic?
É o encaixe da bateria lá, ó. Na hora que ele larga, ele não encaixa. Se ele segura, toca. Se ele tira...
Stick kind of sticking out at an angle. Yeah, I noticed that whenever I pushed the door all the way in so it locks in place, the power cut off. But if I only pushed it in enough for the pot...
Vai ter que botar um esparadrapo aí, ó. Bota uma fita aí que funciona. Na gambiarra.
Positive terminal to connect, it was fine. So I just decided to shave off the extra bits of plastic with a razor blade, tried closing the cover again, and guess what? It worked perfectly fine straight away. These tiny slivers of plastic were all that stood in the way of me.
Raspou o plástico. Descobri depois de um ano, quando ele comprou o segundo, que era o plástico.
Making this video a year ago. Yeah, I fully blame the battery manufacturers. This is crazy. So here's the... Yeah, I fully blame the battery manufacturers. This is
Fully blame the battery manufacturer. This is
crazy. So here's the original, here's the new one. And like, same specs and everything, but you know, it's just this slight.
Olha lá, tem uma diferencinha de tamanho. They line up
Slight size difference. They line up in terms of the terminals pretty much, but there's this extra thickness, just a little bit on the actual body of the battery. And I guess that was just too much. It made it too tight. Something, either way. Anyway, back to our regularly scheduled oddware, and inside the box were all these things.
Beleza, agora vai poder voltar a fazer o vídeo.
Things here: registration and warranty, quick start guide, instruction manual and addendum, Windows 9X software and CD-ROM, parallel cable, gum stick, battery and charger, carrying case, and cheapo, terrible earbud headphones that cause pain.
O headphone que ele falou que é terrível. Causa dor.
And the MP3 player itself, which is made of aluminum and feels wonderfully solid in the hands.
O negócio é feito de alumínio, construção boa. Pegada boa na mão.
On the left is the headphone out and a tiny parallel connector. Looks a lot like the cable
Conector ali do serial para botar as músicas.
on my LG flip phone from a quarter century ago. On the right side is nothing. On front is an LED that blinks while playing and 4 buttons: play, stop, volume up and down, with some of them performing double duty as equalizer settings and track skipping. Around back is a tiny head control switch for when you need to control your head, and this physically moves the actual head up and down.
Isso aí que eu acho estranho, mano. In physical moves a head up and no mixer.
To make sure it sits in the right place. And yep, on the bottom is a
aí para rodar, como que ele lê leitor lá do...
regular stereo tape head, flipped around to smush up against the one in your cassette player. Same thing that happens with those 3.5mm tape adapters, just with an MP3 player connected inside instead of an aux cable. Then up top is the power switch, battery bay, and memory.
Bateria de energia. Expansão, tipo SD.
Expansion slot, which might look like SD, but nope, this is MMC. And it only supports up to 32 megabytes on this version of the device. Now, while SD card readers are generally backwards compatible with MMC, the other way around, not so much. The MMC only has 7 pins and is slightly thinner than SD, and actually this one is even weirder since it's convertible to reduced size MMC, a very brief footnote in the history of mobile devices.
Lá dá pra puxar e virar um menorzinho também, esse MMC.
But yeah, it's high time we put this through its paces. So I got the software installed on Windows 98 and flipped through the documentation, which all looks super straightforward.
Vai lá, bota o CD, instala no computador, mano.
The main thing is it requires ECP mode for the parallel port, so that may need a BIOS adjustment. And I also like these warranty limitations. You will receive no support for infiltration of alien matters. Like,
Não suporte para alien matters, problemas de aliens extraterrestres.
I get what they mean, but what a way to put it. And yeah, once the parallel settings were correct, the software was as simple as it gets. Like, you can barely do anything here beyond see what's in memory, delete existing MP3s, or transfer new ones. You can't even copy MP3s from the player to your PC. Once they're on there, you better keep a copy locally. And then all the actual MP3 ripping and tagging stuff is handled by Real Jukebox. Ah, the memories. Unfortunately, it's the free version, not the full one, so certain features are locked out, like the ability to encode MP3s at anything higher than 96k bps.
Testando aí no software de MP3, no computador.
It also does not support directly communicating with the Duo MP3 player to transfer files, which seems like an oversight, hence the need for an external program. But yeah, insert your audio CD of choice, rip tracks and compress them to MP3s, then use the Digisette application to transfer things via the all-powerful parallel port. ECP mode is speedier than standard, but the fastest I'm getting here is about 75 kilobytes per second, taking 42 seconds to send a 3.07 megabyte file. But hey, it works. And yeah, at this point, we can use the thing exactly like any other MP3 player, just an annoyingly limited one. During playback, the same button selects between jazz, pop, and classical EQ, holding it down pauses, and pressing volume up or down plus play will skip tracks forward or backward. Which, yeah, you might be wondering how you control things when it's inside a cassette deck, and I was too. In fact, I assumed you'd simply be out of luck and had to let it play whatever's in memory continuously, but I was so happy to be wrong. Seriously, when I discovered this feature...
Vamos lá, então ele botou o negócio lá. Playback, jazz, pop.
Selects between jazz, pop, and classical EQ, holding it down pauses, and pressing volume up or down plus play will skip tracks forward or backward. Which, yeah, you might be wondering how you control things when it's inside a cassette deck, and I was too. In fact, I assumed you'd simply be out of luck and had to let it play whatever's in memory continuously, but I was so happy to be wrong. Seriously, when I discovered this feature, it made it so much cooler of a device than it already was. So yeah, we have these buttons here for controlling it as a standalone MP3 player, and we can turn it on, and of course, if we had the headphones plugged in, we could press play and hear it playing. Right now it's not doing anything, it is just powered on. But if you take it and put it in any tape player at all, and it barely fits in this one. Actually, you know what? This one didn't even have a speaker. What am I thinking? This is just a cheapo one I had lying around. I don't have actually too many cassette decks that actually work. Here's one with a speaker, so we'll just demonstrate this. So yeah, a speaker, what am I thinking? This is just a cheapo one I had lying around. I don't have actually too many cassette decks that actually work. Here's one with a speaker, so we'll just demonstrate this. So yeah, put it in there. And then it goes in there. And so it is not, again, playing. It is just turned on. But if I press play here on the actual cassette player, okay, so there's that demo song, but there's other songs on here. So if we do this...
Bom, tocou a demo que já vem na fita original. Vamos ver as toca outras.
Fast forward. It skips tracks and pauses through just the controls of the cassette player itself. Fast forward again.
Ligou o cassete original, skip.
Next track.
Toca.
And yeah, rewind works, so you can skip back around and stuff like that to do things that way. It's so cool that it works like that.
Funcionou, né, então. Tá funcionando aí. Tá andando pra frente, rebobinando, tocando as músicas.
So this is that extra belt that we saw inside there that is going around the take-up reel, I guess, and it's just right, it goes right down here. You can see it just chilling right there. A little pinch roller up against that, presses into the belt, and then there's a couple of sensors in here that are detecting when it is going much faster than playback, either one direction or the other, and that's how it knows to do rewind or fast forward. Yeah, this one, it is a little bit of a tight fit in certain ones of these, but yeah, the functionality for everything in terms of the remote control through a cassette interface is working on each of them that I've tried, or at least that I have working cassette units. That really big cool TAC one earlier unfortunately is not functional, but I'm sure it would work on that too. But yeah, the reason this blows my mind is because I haven't seen any others that do this, like the other MP3 cassette adapter things like this that Tecmo has covered. He's showing the inside, and it doesn't have a rubber belt. It had an infrared remote to do this kind of stuff. But yeah, this one, it just does it on its own, and it doesn't mention it in here. You know, cassette deck operation, it mentions the other things. Use cassette controls for play, pause, stop, increase and decrease volume. Yeah, just your regular cassette controls, but it doesn't mention anything about the rewinding, fast forwarding. Really, the only thing that you can't do remotely is change the equalizer settings. And even that mixtape one, the newer one with the touch screen, you have to touch the screen in order to do that. And that was...
Tá falando de outros modelos parecidos, mas que não fazia essas coisas.
A bit of a drawback with that thing. Like if it's behind a cover or something, then you can't control the thing itself. Whereas with this, you just can. It doesn't matter what you put it in, as long as the controls for, you know, the transport controls are working on your actual cassette unit. Then the tape right here, the MP3 player, will be able to be controlled that way. And yeah, it's not mentioned in the manual addendum. So I went back and looked through the original patents for this in Korean and found that, yeah, it mentions it quite...
Opa, faço react, tô fazendo react desse vídeo aqui, Digisette Duo, é um fita cassete dos anos 2000 aí que você bota MP3 dentro pra tocar nos tocadores de fita cassete.
Quite specifically, from what I can tell, as a patented feature of this particular design that would become the Duo MP3, stating that that little belt is connected to an extended system that has some sensors to detect when the tape is speeding up suddenly, you know, going into rewind or fast forward, and a couple of sensors.
Filme quase não tô fazendo não, é difícil eu ver filme aqui. Porque filme dá copyright. E... o filme eu boto pra tocar aqui na Twitch, ele some, não aparece. Fica preta a tela. Eu só fico mais de vídeo no YouTube mesmo.
See that and tell the MP3 player to skip tracks. It's just such a killer feature that I don't know why it is not explicitly mentioned more obviously anywhere, especially not in the manual. That really confuses me, but even on the box, there's hardly any mention of it. You kind of have to just look around and eventually you'll notice that, oh yeah, right here it does say something that really implies that that's what's happening. It says only the Duo MP3 lets you play your files in your car cassette player, standard tape controls, fast forward, rewind, play, navigate digital content. It's there. It does say it if you kind of assume that that's what it means. But yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't see that about this when I was reading all the other stuff about it. And I am just surprised that, as far as I know, it is just this one.
Falando aqui, the surprise has a no. I just want
that had that patented system going on. Maybe the Rome one did, since that seems so very similar and was also made in Korea. Maybe it's made by the same people with the same system. Either way, I mean, the patent has expired, so maybe it can be put into something else in the future.
Hoje em dia a patente já expirou, né? Isso aí.
If this becomes a thing again. Anyway, let's do a few tests here just of the output of this thing, and I'll plug in some headphones and get that directly to the camera, and we'll do some captures. Because another thing that I actually don't know, because it's not mentioned in the manual or anywhere else that I've seen, is what kind of quality it can go up to in terms of MP3s. And, you know, can it do 320 kbps? I don't know. 96 kbps is the only thing that is in that software that it came with. So yeah, let's just do some testing.
Testando de novo, agora em 160 kbps, qualidade do áudio, né? Depois ele vai ver se consegue 320 kbps também. Vamos ver. Vai dar copyright. Tá legal, vou até dar uma parada aqui para não dar copyright, mas tá uma qualidade boa. parando mais um pouquinho, para não dar o copyright. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Vou passar mais rápido essa parte. Vou botar no e-mail aqui, porque senão o copyright vai vir na certeza. 56, agora 320 kbps. O áudio tá pegando. É, o bagulho tá funcionando, né? Interessante. Esse que ele ainda botou um aqui, ó, tirou daqui no headphone e botou nesse alto-falante aqui, ó. Um alto-falante mais novo, né? Interessante. É. Pronto, né?
Well, yeah, that's about it for this episode of LGR Oddware. And
Vou voltar ao normal, senão vai dar um monte de copyright aí dessas músicas. Bom, voltamos ao normal. Agora vamos à conclusão do vídeo.
Digisette. Well, yeah, that's about it for this episode of LGR Oddware and the Digisette Duo MP3. This thing is just so cool to me. You know, it's even more so now that I've really put it through its paces and learned more about it. You know, using that remote feature where you can just stick it in any kind of tape player and it controls with those. All these work. That's so cool. And the fact that they didn't make an even bigger deal about it is nuts to me, because compared to all the other ones that I'm familiar with, that really is a killer feature. I really wish that I still had a, compared to all the other ones that I'm familiar with, they didn't make an even bigger deal about it is nuts to me, because compared to all the other ones that I'm familiar with, that really is a killer feature.
Falando que acho legal porque ele pode funcionar igual uma fita cassete comum, botando o MP3 lá dentro e poder rebobinar e avançar a música igual uma cassete normal. É uma característica killer aí, muito legal, e que ele nem sabia, que nem estava na descrição ali da embalagem, que os outros produtos parecidos da época lá não tinha. Ele queria ter isso, um carro com uma fita cassete player na cabeça, mas
I really wish that I still had a car with a tape player in the head unit. Unfortunately, I don't. But yeah, just even putting it in any kind of cheapo, random cassette player is just really enjoyable. Something about connecting those two
cassete normal ainda hoje em dia dá pra usar essa fita.
tape heads together and just sort of smushing it in place and making it work. I did actually, and this one in particular, because it's so tight, I do have to adjust that little head there, or sometimes when I put it in there and stuff it in, you have to like knock it around and eventually the heads line up, otherwise the stereo is all wonky. And there's also the noise level. It's crazy how noisy this thing is, and even the other one that I have, but you know, these are cheap little portable players. And so that noise you do not hear, all that hiss in between tracks in particular, but just kind of all the time. You don't hear that on the player itself. It's just nice, clean digital output. But
falou que ele é som é limpo, porque é digital, né? Tem menos noise do coisa analógica lá, que fica fazendo aquele noise, que é fita cassete de fita, né?
yeah, I wanted to record it going through a tape player, since that's kind of the idea. And yeah, as you saw, as I was putting up on the screen there, I was trying a bunch of different kinds of MP3 files, and it only does play MP3s, no other formats. But everything that I threw...
Funciona em MP3, outro tipo digital, FLAC, aqueles lá não funciona. Move...
at it, CBR and VBR, and all the different bit rates and things, and I actually tried a couple of different encoders. They're all work.
Mas todo tipo de qualidade de MP3, tipo de MP3 que colocou lá, funcionou bem.
Just perfectly fine on here, even though it doesn't say anything about which bit rates it wants or whatever. I don't know, it's just whatever you can fit on the memory card or the internal memory or both. So,
memory card, internal memory, or os dois.
Yeah, hope you enjoyed this episode of Oddware. And hey, if you use one
Hope you enjoyed esse episódio, espero que tenham gostado do episódio da fita cassete com MP3.
of these Digisette MP3 players back in the day, definitely let me know.
E se você está usando esse MP3, fita cassete, MP3 hoje em dia, Deixe-me saber, faça num
Oh,
comentário.
maybe you had one of the other models. I'm curious if they work the same
Tem outros modelos, eu tô curioso para saber se funciona do mesmo jeito que está funcionando comigo.
way, or just what your go-to MP3 player
Ou já você botou MP3 Player ou foi somente com MP3 Player foi? Or what, o que você fez
was, or
digital áudio.
what you used to get digital audio through a cassette interface back in the day, or now. It's
Talvez fita cassete back there.
still a viable thing you might need to do. Either way, I hope you stick around for more episodes of Oddware and other LGR things coming in the future. And as always, thank you back in the day, or now. It's still a viable thing you might need to do. Either way, I hope you stick around for more episodes of Oddware and other LGR things coming in the future. Either way, I hope you stick around for more episodes of Oddware and other LGR things coming in the future. And as always, thank you for watching.
Então é isso. Se estiver usando mais coisas aí, fala que ele gostaria de saber quem está usando mais dispositivo diferente. Legal, né? Apareceu do nada na minha timeline essa Digisette Duo. Eu até achei que era uma tecnologia nova, cliquei pra saber o que que era. Mas é uma coisa antiga, é um canal de coisas antigas, né, desse cara aqui. Tecnologia retrô, né, que ele faz. Usa até PC de tubo lá, com Windows 95 até hoje, CD-ROM. Então isso foi react dessa tecnologia aqui, ou retro, old school aqui, retro, que eu vi aqui, deixei aqui pra vocês, achei interessante. Fiz aqui no canal, postei aqui. Então, se você gostou, deixa um comentário aí. O que você achou dessa fita cassete MP3, né? Então é isso aí. Valeu aí.
Just whatever you can fit on the memory card, digital audio.
Valeu, deixa o like, abraço, falou, até mais. Fui, falou.